Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Thinking Outside the Blocks with our friend Charlie Man Dan. How are you today, Dan?
Wonderful. How are you?
Pretty good. A little bit cold, pretty fresh down here in Tasmania this morning. But today we're going to talk about our place in the universe and sort of how insignificant we are and how that helped both of us on our journey with all aspects of our lives, I guess. So I might throw it over to you.
Definitely one thing that has led to success for me in trading and life and everything is recognizing ego. And one thing that humans do is they think, with their ego, we are the center of everything. We're the most important. I, me, mine. That's a thought pattern that's ensured our survival throughout the evolution of mankind. And it's been a very beneficial thing in the sense of, wanting to stay alive and looking out for number one. But the more that we expand in science and broaden, both zooming in at what's going on microscopically and what's going on the macro picture in the universe, it's becoming very clear that we are not the center of the universe and we're not the most important thing, that there is. And it goes all the way back to history with the Earth's the center of the universe. And it's just slowly, the more that we learn, the more we see how small and insignificant we are. And for me, recognizing the ego goes back to high school and high school psychology class and Carl Jung and Freud and all of these ideas and really reestablishing our thought patterns, because we're trained as humans based on our DNA and evolution to have those thought patterns. But if we can recognize them and shift them and say, I'm number one, I'm the most important, and then you catch that thought and say, no, maybe not, and then you look at things from a different perspective, that really changes everything.
Yeah, so for me, Dan, I know I was telling people on my journey I didn't really go down the rabbit hole and become open-minded until uni when I started watching all these different documentaries and reading. For you, you were saying, was that almost high school with the
High school
classes?
into college, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me it was really watching particularly some of these space documentaries and really getting that grasp about how big the universe is and, more stars, more galaxies than grains of sand, and you really realize how insignificant we are, just a tiny little blip in the scheme of things, but also in the scheme of time. Humans have only been around, that tiny little, I think the analogy is tear a little corner off the page of paper, and that's, how long the universe has been around and so on. But once you grasp all those concepts, it just makes every aspect of your life, I guess, easier to swallow if you're having a bad day or trying to do a task or whatever, and you just really, that helped me so much, I think, realizing how insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, for me, honestly, it was definitely education, but a lot of losing my innocence. And the more that happened, I mean, you can really trace it all the way back. A lot of people don't have trust for the government, specifically here in the US. And I lost a lot of my innocence when I was reading about industrial hemp and, the powers that be making it illegal for BS reasons and all that. So, number one, losing trust in the government. But it really can go all the way back. I don't know how they do it in Australia, but Santa Claus is huge in the US. Everybody believes in Santa Claus for however many years in their life. And that's the first moment. Like, imagine that awakening. My life is a lie. Every person that I've trusted has been lying to me. And it's just a complete false statement. And I've been believing this my whole life. And it's just like, man, if I can be hook, line, and sinker on something as crazy as this, that's probably where step number one was for, every time you lose a little bit of innocence, your brain patterns and your thought patterns shift a little bit to look at the world in a different way.
Yeah, oh, definitely the same here in Australia. Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, a lot of things in our lives where everyone's on agreement on something without ever giving it that deeper thought and questioning things. I could go on for hours, and we're going to in the future about pharmacy and some of the thoughts and things that are known to be true that are very, very wrong in the world of health, I guess, as well. The food pyramid, all these sort of things we probably are going to explore in the future. Another thing I just wanted to talk about was our living in synergy with our surroundings and environment. So another thing that's just a blip on the radar is our fossil fuel usage, industrialized economies, how important we all the items in our life are compared to living in harmony with nature. And that's something I think is going to become a huge theme, renewable energy, sustainable living. Everything we're trying to do is this growth, and we know with mathematics that it's not possible to continue these exponential growth patterns, and we live on a finite planet. So all these things, once I went down that rabbit hole and started to think about that, really changed my perspective on things. Oh, you're frozen up, Dan. That's all right.
I love gardening. I love all that. But just touching on what you said with permaculture and opening my mindset where mutually beneficial relationships become the backbone of design. And, if you need to put a fence around a certain area to keep animals out or whatever you're trying to do, you then have a fence you can use to trellis, and you plant peas along it and the peas grow up the fence, and there's just multiple uses for everything. And that's one thing that I've found, with the YouTube channel and cryptocurrency and the communities we're building, that mutually beneficial is the way to go. And I think that trickles all the way down to human survival and, the best way to live our lives rather than competitive. And I just put out a video with the trucking sector and blockchain, but the whole sector is, working together. And I really love that aspect of things because, we're no longer needing to squash the other guy to get ahead. We can all work together. We're intelligent enough. We have enough technology that we can all get ahead together.
Yeah, and one of the things we try and do working with these startup projects, there's literally 2 projects doing the same thing in the same city here in Australia, and I'm really trying to convince them to merge, because having 2 teams of 10, you can actually achieve exponentially more having one team of 20, and I think that's what some people, again, they're just so hesitant to do that for all those other reasons we've touched on. I guess finally, Dan, to wrap up, one thing I wanted to ask you was, I'm a big believer that we're not alone in the universe, and if aliens are to come along, for example, and look down on Earth and say, look, there's these people that are still fighting over sex, race, skin color, they live on a different side of an imaginary border and they bomb each other and all this sort of thing. Have we got a long way to go as a species to become worthy of being, how do you define this? Evolving to the next level of I can't find the right word. Sorry, Dan. You know exactly what I'm getting at. To be worthy of being, a more advanced civilization.
Yeah, it all goes back to me to shifting our DNA. It's in our DNA to be competitive, to get ahead of the other guy, to ensure our DNA is what goes on to the next level. And it's breaking those thought patterns and shifting the way that humans interact with each other that is really going to take it to the next level. And, hopefully we'll be around and don't screw up the earth before that happens. But it's just a long, drawn out line of evolution. And you're right, it seems like a huge amount of time, millions of years that humans have been evolving, and then you just zoom out a little bit. It's the same thing as the chart. You zoom in on the chart for little details, you zoom out for the bigger picture, and the bigger picture on the amount of time that humans have been around compared to, however many billions of years that the universe has been around, we think.
Yeah.
It's just so insignificant, and just one person out of 7 billion is just, you don't matter.
Yeah, and that's just
but you can make a difference.
That's just this universe. If you start to go into multi-universe theory and all that sort of thing. So finally, Dan, resources for people. I know for me it was just watching all those fantastic space documentaries, Neil deGrasse, those believers, those thought provokers. What resources would you recommend for people? Definitely
documentaries. Books. The Emperor Wears No Clothes was the hemp book that I was talking about that opened my eyes. But yeah, the documentaries out there, and there's so many websites where you can literally just have documentaries on demand and watch them all the time. And I love learning when I'm doing stuff. If I'm just trying to chill out before going to bed or whatever, I might as well be learning something. So documentaries is where it's at. Reading, I used to read a lot more in school. I don't have as much time for it these days, but it is definitely, I would consider the amount that I read back in elementary, middle school, and leading up through high school definitely set me on a path of intelligence and a never-ending drive for education.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm sure we're looking forward to reading all your comments below, guys. Your thoughts on these topics, what you'd like us to cover next. And thanks for supporting the first episode. It was great to see that our followers want to hear more of this sort of topic being discussed. So thanks again, Dan.
Absolutely. See you next time.
Cheers.